Thursday, December 11, 2014. Now the Sierra Leone news. President Ernest Bai Koroma makes Ebola plea to paramount chiefs. Ebola crisis, bodies found piled up in Conteh. Parliament extends emergency regulations for 90 days. Parliament interviews 6 judges and board chairs. Hello, Massah Saffa, ICANN TV News. Now the news in detail. President Ernest Bai Koroma implored the country's traditional leaders on Thursday to stop cultural practices that has been blamed for spreading Ebola, like burial that involve touching cups. Officials have said up to 70% of new infections in Sierra Leone are linked to unsafe burials. The body of people who have died from Ebola are highly contagious and must be handled with care. The president said, and I quote, "We should stop all traditional practices for now so that we will live to continue to practice them later." He made this speech during the launching of the Ebola Resistance Behavior Change Initiative. For months, President Koroma has been urging traditional leaders to use their power to stop burial and other cultural practices that contribute to the spread of the virus. But the outbreak has only intensified in Sierra Leone in recent weeks. Health officials in Sierra Leone have discovered scores of bodies in a remote diamond mining area, raising fears that the scale of the Ebola outbreak may have been underreported. The World Health Organization said they uncovered a crime scene in the eastern district of Conteh. Our reporter Alfred in Freetown have this to say.
Dozens of bodies were reportedly discovered in the Conteh district. They were suspected to have died of Ebola. Details are still sketchy though. Conteh district is close to Kenema and Kailaun, 2 districts that were initially the epicenter of the Ebola disease.
The House of Parliament yesterday unanimously approved by extension of a constitutional instrument titled the Public Emergency Regulations 2014, which is an instrument of the enforcement of the emergency situation in the country. The motion was brought before the Honorable House by the Majority Leader of Parliament and also Leader of Government Business, Honorable Ibrahim Bundu, and seconded by the Deputy Minority Leader, Honorable Ansumana Jaya Kaikai. 8 prominent Sierra Leoneans, including 6 judges of the judiciary of Sierra Leone, on Tuesday, December 9th, appeared before the Appointment and Public Service Committee in Parliament for interviews. First to appear before the committee was renowned private sector investor Mr. Oluniyi Robin Coker as proposed board chairman, Sierra Leone Investment and Export Agency. Ambassador Aliyu Ibrahim Kanu faced the committee as nominee for Chairman, Independent Media Commission. Honorable Justice Vivian Margaret Solomon was another presidential nominee who appeared before the committee for the position of Supreme Court Judge. Other prominent judges were also interviewed for the appointment of Appeal Court and Supreme Court judges. These include Honorable Justice N.C. Brownie Mark for Supreme Court, Honorable Justice Emmanuel Ekundayo Roberts for Supreme Court, Honorable Justice Abdullah Hamid Charm for Appeal Court, Honorable Justice Mange Fanadin Tarawali for Appeal Court, and Honorable Justice Ernest V.A. Gooding as High Court Judge. And now, our Diary of the Week. Let's go to our reporter, Alpha Abu, who is standing by in Freetown and has this to say.
A 28-year-old father of two, Samuel Conteh, who resides at Kuntolo, a depressed hilly community overlooking Wellington east of the capital, Freetown, is one of hundreds of Sierra Leoneans to have survived the Ebola disease so far. Samuel is the focus of our ICANN TV diary for this week. Samuel's closest friend was Alusain Bangura, who lived just next door and from whom he believed he got infected with the Ebola virus. He said they had warned his friend Alusain, who peddled medicines and treated sick people in the neighborhood, but was not a trained nurse, to stop such treatment, which had been attributed to a large extent to the spread of the contagious disease. According to Samuel, his friend treated a sick woman cousin who soon died. His friend got sick and died also. Within a 2-week period, a total of 11 people had succumbed to death, but with the strong denial prevalent in the community, the disease apparently continued to infect and claim more lives. Upon experiencing persistent headache and fever, Samuel went to a hospital and was diagnosed and treated of malaria, but his condition got worse. At home, he bravely told his wife and 2 young children to stay away from him until he could go to the main Connaught Hospital for further tests. There he was kept at a holding center as he awaited the results of his test. Whilst there, he had quite harrowing experiences. There were, for instance, piles and piles of corpses in body bags next room with quite overpowering stench. He and other people complained to a white doctor, and he got the bodies removed. When Samuel's test result came out, a friend of his was with the doctor at the time, and he broke the news to him by telephone. He was positive. His friend offered him words of encouragement, but he was obviously devastated. Samuel was together with 2 others in the ambulance that drove them from the Connaught Hospital holding unit to the treatment center at Hastings in suburban Freetown. One of the other 2 people in the ambulance, a young lady, died a few days later. Samuel and 14 others were in one ward, and next to him was a very popular and well-respected patient, Dr. Martin Salia, a surgeon specialist who had also contracted the disease. He recalled the conversations he had with the doctor, whom he said persistently expressed his desire to see his wife and children in the United States. Dr. Salia died at a U.S. hospital. Whilst Samuel was at the treatment center, the disease continued its ravaging of his neighborhood. Every day he was receiving calls on his mobile phone from friends telling him about the passing away of someone. When the calls became too frequent, he told the callers to stop and switched off his phone. He would only switch it on to talk to his wife and pastor brother, the latter who would pray with him on the phone. Some 3 weeks after being admitted into the treatment center, he still showed positive after a test was conducted, but eventually 4 days later another test came out negative. He was discharged on the 15th November after a whole month in hospital. By then, he revealed only 8 of the 15 patients in his ward had survived. Also by that time, some 26 people had died in his neighborhood. Samuel's firm decision to keep away from his wife, 2 young kids, friends and close neighbors during the initial stages of the illness possibly helped save many other lives. He went to church the next Sunday, donated to the church most of the 250,000 leones they gave to him upon being discharged from hospital. His pastor brother hugged him in front of the whole congregation to dispel any fear and to encourage people to believe that once cured of Ebola, a survivor was no longer a figure of transmission. Samuel is back home with his family. He is looking forward to continuing his work as a Mason. Samuel's case was a real show of resilience of the human spirit. And that's our ICANN TV diary for this week.
To end ICANN TV news, here are the headlines again. President Anesbai Koroma makes Ebola plea to paramount chiefs. Ebola crisis, bodies found piled up in Conteh. Parliament extends emergency regulations for 90 days. Parliament interviews 6 judges and board chairs. And that's the end of our news for today. Massah Saffa, ICANN TV News.